need to know.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, 3 o'clock chatter. What's going on, my friends? The Eagles dominated the Chiefs yesterday to win Super Bowl 59, 40-22. Patrick Mahomes comes up one game shy of a three-peat. He was picked twice in the first half. Jalen Hurts was named MVP after winning his first title. And for Saquon Barkley, he talked about his journey to a championship.
It took 7 years to get here. Some up and downs, some injuries, but coming here and being part of this team, year one, and why not start our dynasty now?
Eagles are the betting favorite to win the title next year, followed by the Ravens, Bills, and Chiefs. Blazers are back in action tonight. They meet the Denver Nuggets at Ball Arena. Tip-off scheduled for 6. Our coverage will start with Blazers game day at 5 with Chris Burkhardt. Portland has had their 6-game winning streak snapped Saturday in Minnesota. They've won 10 of their last 12. The Nuggets have won 6 straight. They're third in the West. And Luka Doncic has been upgraded to probable for tonight's game against the Jazz. It will be his Lakers debut.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's time for the Rip City Drive, brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Featuring the crazy and often irrational longtime Portland radio vet, Chad Dewing.
3rd and 16. Mahomes rolling out. Looking, firing, intercepted. Picked up by Cooper DeJean. Gets a block. DeJean is in. Touchdown. Looking to run some clock, or maybe throw the dagger. Hurts going deep for it all. Devontae Smith. He has got it. Touchdown.
The Chiefs were on the doorstep of NFL history, but the Eagles, with complete and total domination tonight in Super Bowl 59, build up a 34-0 lead. They did it through the air and on the ground and with their defense, and they crushed the Chiefs.
This 2024 Eagle team's not done yet. We got a couple more things to celebrate. I love these guys. It just keeps coming back to you cannot be great without the greatness of others. This is the best team sport there is.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Dewing starts now.
Yeah, I've been kicking myself for the last 24 hours thinking about the game yesterday, Super Bowl 59. Everything that we talked about leading up to that game, and yet I walked away from that, and I thought the Chiefs would win with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid because I thought it would be a one-score game. So lessons that were learned yesterday only reinforce things that we knew from the past. And that is, if you have great line of scrimmage play and you're dominant with both your offensive and defensive lines, that's going to put you in a position to win a championship. In championship games, the teams that compete and dominate at the line of scrimmage, we have seen win Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl. And that was once again the case yesterday with Philadelphia, the best roster in football, and they just dominated that football game in ways that I did not foresee. I know a lot of you out there thought the Eagles would win, but they dominated that game, and they made Patrick Mahomes look pedestrian. It was awful. I mean, Mahomes had a horrendous game, maybe the worst of his career, and obviously the worst Super Bowl that he has played, but the Chiefs dominated. Props to the Eagles, man. That is a very good football team, and they're going to be good for the next couple of years because they have a lot of talent, and they're the betting favorites for next year. What's going on, my friends? Happy Monday to you. Rip City Drive, Chad Dewing with you. It's going to be a 1-hour show today, so here's the plan. We'll talk Super Bowl. Former NFLer Ed Smith is going to join me coming up in 15 minutes. We'll get his take on the way that game played out yesterday, the dominance of the Eagles at the line of scrimmage, and the way they were able to frustrate Patrick Mahomes. Probably the craziest stat from the game yesterday in my mind, the Eagles did not blitz. They didn't blitz once. They just used their front four to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes. And when you can play in the NFL with the guys that you have in your base defense and not have to bring extra bodies, it puts you in a position to have great success. Because when you blitz Mahomes, you normally pay the price. The Eagles didn't have to because they were getting such great movement with their guys up front. Now, I think there were like 3 or 4 plays where they brought extra guys, but they dropped their linemen back into coverage. So it ended up being a wash. No blitzing. That's crazy. No blitzing, and they dominated the football game, and they pressured Mahomes at about 50% pressure rate. Truly a remarkable football game defensively for the Eagles. And I thought Jalen Hurts, who is a very poised and calm, cool customer, he played a great game. I mean, he was dialed in. He was operating that offense at a high level. They stayed committed to the run, even though the Chiefs did a good job of shutting down Saquon Barkley, and the defense did the rest. And watching the Chiefs yesterday, it was so bizarre to watch Mahomes and that offense just get stonewalled, frustrated. So Ed Smith will come up in 15 minutes. We'll get his take on the game yesterday. And then I picked out multiple audio bites that we'll get to coming up at 3:45 from Travis Kelce, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, the entire package. But that's my big takeaway from yesterday, that the Eagles did have the best roster, and it showed through in the game. Also, the Trailblazers are back in action tonight. Tip-off in Denver against the Nuggets is at 6 o'clock here on 620 Rip City Radio, your home of the Blazers. Travis Demers will have the call. Portland's going to play the Nuggets in Denver tonight, and they'll rematch the Nuggets on Wednesday. Both games are in Denver, and then Portland will enter the All-Star break, and they'll get more than a week off before they begin their stretch run. And then the Lakers and Luka will be in town on the 20th. Now, Luka is probable. He was upgraded to probable, so it looks like he's going to play tonight and make his Lakers debut against the Jazz. And that's going to bode well for all of us because we'll have a chance to see Luka with LeBron post-All-Star break at Moda Center, which is awesome. I want to see that. I'm excited to see that. I thought Mavericks fans over the weekend did a great job of protesting. And by chanting, "He's not fat, bring him back," that was impressive. That was very well done by the Mavs. And their ownership group, their front office, just continues to leak a bunch of nonsense about Luka, trying to throw him under the bus. It's one of the dumbest trades I've ever seen in my life, and it's going to go down like that. But even better was Anthony Davis in his Mavericks debut, balling out and then exiting the game with a lower body injury. And it's some type of, I don't know, core issue or something going on, but he's going to be out for an extended period of time. It couldn't get any better than that. Anthony Davis living up to how we know Anthony Davis, and the Mavericks having this backfire into their face. And I believe that Kyrie Irving has been selected to replace Anthony Davis at the All-Star game because he's out with the injury. You can't make this stuff up. Anthony Davis is a cool dude, and he's a very good basketball player, but he's not known as an Iron Man like Karl Malone. The biggest knock on Davis is his lack of availability, and yet he can't even make it through one game with the Mavs without being back on the shelf. I feel bad for him, and yet the Mavericks and their front office, they just need to shut their mouth. Look, don't be upset because everyone thinks you're insane for trading away a top 3 player in the world. You are, and it was a bad idea. I don't care what the reasons were behind it. No one's going to think that's a good idea. He's top 3 world. But, yeah, he's not fat. Bring him back. Oh, it's so good. All right. The Super Bowl yesterday, I am frustrated with my assessment because I thought all along for 2 weeks, and I said this repeatedly on air, that the Eagles were a darn good football team, that they do have the best roster in football, but yet I picked the Chiefs to win because I thought it would be a close, competitive football game, a one-score game. And in those situations, I'm going to lean on Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. I thought it would be one score. I thought the Chiefs would be in a position to win it, and I wasn't going to turn my back on Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in that type of spot. And yet the Eagles came out from the opening kickoff and just completely dominated the football game. So again, what we learned here and what I was reminded of is that when you get into a game like this, don't be clouded by the fact that one team has the best quarterback and the other team does not. In championship football games, in the Super Bowl, we've seen this time and time again. You can have a powerful offense, like the Broncos did when they took on the Seahawks in Super Bowl 48. You can have the best quarterback, like the Broncos did, or like the Broncos did 3 times in the 80s with John Elway. The problem is that even with the best quarterback, if your line of scrimmage play is lacking, if you don't have the bodies up front to get the job done, and you're taking on the team that has the best defense in the NFL, which the Eagles do, and the Eagles, who are loaded to the gills with talent on both sides of the football and have the best roster from top down, then you should probably lean on that team to win the football game. The Eagles are no joke. And I failed to see that or to really understand that because it got clouded by my judgment got clouded because of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes because those guys are so good. But what the Eagles do yesterday, they didn't blitz once. They used their front four to get pressure on Mahomes. The Chiefs couldn't run the football. Patrick Mahomes was put on his back constantly and under pressure all the time. He didn't make good decisions. The pressure forced him into mistakes. And by the end of the game, I was like, wow. I don't really think it was an indictment on the Chiefs as much as it was the Eagles were superior. The Eagles had the superior roster. They had the superior line of scrimmage play, and they just dominated the game, and they were the more physical football team. They made the Chiefs look bad, and they did so with their aggressive play calling, their mentality and an understanding of who they are, and they didn't get away from that. You know how we criticize the Ravens sometimes because they get into these big moments, and instead of doing what they do best, which is run the football and be physical, they try to drop back Lamar Jackson and have him whip it around the field. They forget who they are. But the Eagles, the one thing they've been all year is a physical football team that leans on their offensive line and their defensive line, and they have an identity. We're going to run the football. We're going to use Hurts in the run game. We're going to lean on Saquon Barkley, and then we'll ask Hurts, 2 or 3 times a game to make some beautiful throws downfield. And that's exactly what played out yesterday in the football game. The Eagles knew who they were. They had an identity, and they continued to lean into that. And they allowed their talent and their physicality at the line of scrimmage to take over. That was an impressive, complete football game that they put together. And I think what it is, or maybe the reason why it was so shocking for most of us who watched the game, we're so used to watching the Chiefs win games. We're so used to watching Patrick Mahomes get over in big moments. We're used to Andy Reid making adjustments or Steve Spagnuolo being able to make adjustments or dial up the right blitz at the right time. They just come through so much in big games, and rarely do they get manhandled like that it's shocking for us. But that's exactly what happened. And I know people are frustrated because they didn't feel like Andy Reid made any adjustments or that there was no counterpunch by the Chiefs, that Steve Spagnuolo couldn't really figure it out. I think the problem is they ran into a buzzsaw. They just ran into a team that's better. The Eagles are a complete football team. They were the more physical football team, and they just took apart the Chiefs from top down. And credit to them. I mean, they just manhandled them. It was amazing. Now, before the game, I was talking with the sportsbook manager down at Spirit Mountain Casino. I was down there with the party, and we had about 700 people jammed into the event center. It was a great event. And I asked him who he was pulling for. And he told me he was pulling for the Eagles because all that money had come in on the Chiefs, especially down there with the tribe. They're big supporters of the Chiefs for obvious reasons. So he was pulling for the Eagles. And then I talked to someone else that I trust who's down in Vegas, and he had said that he had talked with Mr. Vaccaro from South Point, and that I think 8 sharps had come in and put sizable plays in on Philadelphia, including Billy Walters. And so once I heard that before the game, I was like, well, I think I know who's going to win now. And then sure enough, the Eagles went out and got it done. But that was a dominant performance. We'll come back, and when we do, we'll be joined by former NFLer Ed Smith. We'll get his take on the Super Bowl and how the Eagles were able to take apart the Chiefs. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing. All right, our next guest is going to join us and talk some Super Bowl. He's a former Atlanta Falcon, played in Super Bowl 33, and is part of the Believe Podcast Network. Ed Smith is back on the show. Ed, long time no chat. How you doing, my friend? Thanks for coming on.
Hey, appreciate you having me, Chad. Good to be talking with you, man.
Well, it's great to talk with you. I don't know what you thought going into the game, but did the results surprise you in the way the Eagles were able to dominate the Chiefs from start to finish?
It was stunning to me, Chad. I had a totally different picture in my mind how that game was going to go. And if I would have ran in 50 different scenarios, none of them would have kind of gone that way. And the reason I say that is because they actually shocked the Chiefs into the point where they actually looked confused. And we've never seen that. We've never seen Mahomes, minus that, when they played Brady a few years ago in the Super Bowl, he's never looked that confused and dumbfounded. And that was just, such a look we haven't seen in a long time. And it blew my mind how, I guess, well-prepared and physical the Eagles were. They just took it right to them, man.
Yeah, no doubt. I think you make a great point. Patrick Mahomes is like the Michael Jordan of the NFL, so seeing him confused and frustrated like that was really bizarre. I thought one of the stats that jumped out at me, the Eagles did not blitz during the entire game, which I thought was unbelievable. So I'll ask you this because you've been a part of NFL teams and game plans. How rare is it that you go into a game and realize that, hey, we don't need to send a blitz. We can get there with the guys we have up front?
I don't think I've ever heard of anything like that. Not one blitz in the entire game. And it's one thing not to blitz. It's another thing not to blitz and have that kind of pressure on a quarterback where you only have to go 4 guys strong across the line. That means you got 7 guys in coverage. So no wonder there were times when Mahomes was dropping back. Not only did he have all that pressure in his face and in his lap, he's also looking out there and seeing 7 DBs, the linebackers and DBs out there, and that was taking up all of the throwing lanes. So I'm sure that kind of took them by surprise. The biggest thing for me, too, Chad, is we never saw an adjustment by the Kansas City Chiefs. Normally, they regroup, they gather, and then they start doing something, whether it's a shorter passing game or pull a trick play or something out of the bag. We saw 0 adjustments by them, and the fact that the Eagles were able to get after them all day long with just 4 and no blitz was astonishing.
No question about it. We're talking with Ed Smith, former Atlanta Falcon here on the Rip City Drive, played in Super Bowl 33. I've heard a lot of that discussion, and I was surprised, too, that we didn't see the counterpunch or adjustment from the Chiefs. Do you think that was just a case of maybe they tried some adjustments, but because they were getting physically manhandled, whatever they tried didn't work? Or was it just one of those spots where not just the players, but the coaching staff had a bad game as well?
I took the second in that one. I think they were taken off guard so much, and everybody's entitled to one of those. It stinks that it was in the Super Bowl, the biggest game of the year. But the coaching staff, along with the players, they just had a brain freeze at the worst possible time. Because for me, even later in the game, it looked like they were still running the same type of stuff as they came out of the box, running. And I mean, still trying to get Patrick 5 and 7 step drops rather than, flooding the lower, the zones early, trying to get some yak after the short catches and stuff like that. They were still dropping back, and maybe because they had fallen behind so much, they felt like they had to still go for the big hitters. But even when the game was still in hand, I don't consider 17-0 out of the range where the Chiefs could have come back, but it seemed like they just never came with the counter punch. And maybe we'll find out more going back and taking a second look at the game. But it just looked like they were still trying to figure things out all the way up into the latter part of the game. By then, it was the icing was on the cake, and the Eagles had their second team in there. So bad day all around, players and coaches.
Hey, Ed, did you appreciate the way the Eagles continued to try to run the football with Saquon? The Chiefs did a good job of really limiting his yardage on the ground, but they continued to stay with it. And I'm wondering that even though they weren't having success in the run because they didn't get away from it, if that continued to put pressure on the Chiefs' defense because they had to be aware of where Saquon was at.
I love the fact that you continue to run the ball And I think what got got them over the top, I think it was the Hurts to Devontae Smith, the long bomb, because they were still running the ball, and it wasn't a whole bunch of yards, but they were still showing it, and everybody just assumed, okay, they're going to come out here and try to grind some clock, run us off the field, and they came and went straight over the top. And I mean, I think because they had continued to run the ball, it put them, like almost like we know what they're going to do, and boom, they hit them over the top. So I love the fact that they continued to try to give Saquon the ball, and almost as a reward for the season he gave them, they were trying to give him another opportunity to break one of those long ones, like he did against the Rams, like he did against Washington. So he's always one step away from going 60, and I like the fact they continue to go to him all the way through the end of the game.
Hey, Ed, how do you view Jalen Hurts now? He gets the championship, he gets the MVP, and he was finally able to get over on Mahomes. He got a chance to do it again after losing to him 2 years ago. What's your thoughts on Hurts now at this stage of his career?
I think everybody has to give him his due respect. I mean, I've never seen a guy criticized so much because he's not flashy. He just does what he needs to do to win. He did that at the college level as well. My nephew actually played with him at Alabama, Irv Smith Jr., so I got to see a ton of him, not just on TV, but in person. And I tell you, man, he's the ideal quarterback for one of those blue-collar teams like Philly. He just goes out there with the lunchbox man and tries to get it done. He does what you ask him to do. On days when you need him to throw it, he does that. On days where you need him to turn around and hand it off, he does that. On days when you need him to be the runner, he does that. So he's a winner. I have nothing but respect for him, and I hope as he gets this one and continues to build on his career, people stop throwing when they describe him as he's pretty good, but let's stop with the buts and let's just say he's a heck of a quarterback, and he's only going to continue to get better.
We're talking with Ed Smith here on the Rip City Drive. Now, you've been in a Super Bowl, and it was one that you lost. How difficult is that after the game trying to absorb a loss because you worked so hard to get to that point, and then at the end of the game, the season's over, you're looking out at the offseason, you're trying to recuperate from that type of loss. How much of a gut punch is it, and what's it like to come back from that and get ready for the next season?
It is absolutely crushing, Chad. I remember, just ours got away from us a little early as well. We lost to Denver. Final score was 34-19, but it wasn't even that close, just like this one for the Chiefs wasn't. And immediately, it's almost like, if you have kids, you'll understand this. You ever watch your kid play a video game? As soon as something goes wrong, they hit the reset button because they got to start that one over.
Yes.
And that's exactly and my son does that all the time. I'm like, look, sometimes you're going to lose, Nah, if it is not perfect, he's not playing. He's starting over. That's exactly how I felt when we were playing and the game started to get away from us. I was like, oh, no, we got to start this one over. But you can't. In real life, you got to take that L. And I remember getting home from Miami, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to see anybody for at least like a week. I just went in after we did our exit physicals and everything, I was so depressed. And because for me, I knew that was like possibly a once in a lifetime deal, playing in a Super Bowl, which it turned out to be. Some of those other guys, there, they'll try again next year. But for me, I just knew, that could have been my only shot. And, I wanted to win that one so bad. And for it to have the loss, it sticks with you. And to this day, every time I think about, I would rather reminisce the NFC Championship game against Minnesota than I like reminiscing, even though it was a great experience, about the Super Bowl because it was such a heartbreak and we lost. But, they'll say better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all,
That's right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Is that the case when you look back at your career? Do you remember the losses or the defeats much more than the wins?
I think of it, I look at the entire journey, and I had, through both my baseball and my football career, I had so many ups and I had so many downs, but I like to think of it as I look at the overall picture. No one loss other than the Super Bowl sticks with me that much. But, I think about the joy of playing in a game like that. Some of the friendships that I had, have still to this day, being recognized as somebody who's played in the Super Bowl. All those things all bring a smile to my face. I wish I would have had the bigger ring and got to go meet Bill and Hillary at the White House. Didn't work out that way, but I tell you, man, it's still a lot of great memories packed in there.
No, it's great. I'm glad that you had that experience. One question outside of the Super Bowl for you, Ed. Aaron Rodgers, it was reported over the weekend that he will not be back with the Jets. Do you think that he will likely come back and play again next year?
I think because he's the type of guy that he doesn't want to be perceived as not being wanted, I think behind the closed doors, he'll make sure that there's some type of guarantee from somebody that they'll want him. Then he'll make the announcement that he's coming back. I don't think he wants to go out after the last 2 years in New York with the Jets. They just didn't go the way I'm sure he envisioned it, and a whole lot of people. I'm not sure he's going to want that taste in his mouth. So I think his team will do some investigating behind the curtain. We'll find out who wants him, who doesn't, and then we'll get the announcement. He's coming back, and he's signing with X, Y, or Z.
So, Ed, now that the football season's over, how do you spend your off-season time when you're not covering the game? Do you get into baseball, or do you just get away from sports? What's your off-season plan?
Hey, we roll with it, man. We go all through the year. We got the March Madness coming up. We stick a little bit with the NBA a little bit. I'm not a big NBA guy, but I'm a Tar Heel, so I got to see if my heels get into the field. And then, we sprinkle a little baseball and different things like that throughout the year. So, we're out here with spring training here in Arizona, so there's never a dull moment. I got enough to keep me occupied. I got a 14-year-old son that runs me ragged as well, so I'll definitely be keeping after it, man.
Now, what's his sport of choice? Do you encourage him to play all sports, or has he gravitated to one particular sport?
We tried to get him into all. I've tried everything. He didn't really stick with baseball that much, but he loves football, he loves basketball. I'm actually trying to talk him into a little track this summer as well. We're trying to keep him, engaged in everything. He had a great freshman season this past year. Deer Valley High School out here has led the team in interceptions.
That's great.
Made some plays all over the field. And man, I'm telling you, it's one thing to be you out there on the field. To see your offspring out there, man, I never thought I could be that proud to hear. Smith makes the interception over the loudspeaker. I'm one of those dads that just sits back and watches. So I'm not running my mouth too much, but it's really been a lot of fun, and I'm going to watch him grow as he continues to get more and more experience.
Gosh, that's awesome, man. I love it. Well, Ed, I appreciate the time. It's nice to catch up with you. Enjoy your off season. We'll catch up again soon.
Sounds good, Chad. Hey, great talking to you, and I appreciate you having me on, man.
All right. Thanks, buddy. There's Ed Smith, former Falcon, played in Super Bowl 33 against the Broncos and shared his thoughts on the ball. Total dominance. And he was stunned, too. He didn't expect that. I told you how I thought it was going to go down. I thought the way it would play out is one-score game, Chiefs would have the football, and that's where Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid would win out. And they just never got in that position because the Eagles dominated from start until finish. It was that quick. It was just boom, boom, boom. That was, wow. And credit to them. I mean, they just completely took over. I knew the game was over right about this play right here.
Back goes Mahomes. He's rushing. He's looking. It's intercepted. It's intercepted. Running with the football to the 25. Down the far side is DeGene. And DeGene is in for a touchdown. Happy birthday, Cooper DeGene.
That's when I knew the game was over because the way it was playing out, the Chiefs couldn't move the football. They were frustrated, and they were just getting manhandled at the line of scrimmage. Wow. Man, props to the Eagles. Philadelphia now with 2 championships. They had one a few years ago in the most unlikely win with when they got over on Tom Brady, and now this time around they do it on Patrick Mahomes. Dominance. All right, when we come back, we're going to take a listen to a few different players from yesterday. We'll hear from Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, and Philadelphia head coach Nick Sirianni. Chris Burkhart's going to have Blazer Game Day coming up at 4. And the Trailblazers Nuggets will tip off at 6 as Portland will continue their 3-game road trip before the All-Star break. So they play tonight and Wednesday in Denver against the Nuggets, and then they have a week plus off before they face the Lakers. Luka makes his return tonight, his Laker debut against the Jazz, which means he should be ready to go post-All-Star break against the Blazers. So we'll have a chance to see him and LeBron at Moda Center. All right, more on the Super Bowl when we come back on the Rip City Drive.
rest of your career. I mean, these will be the two losses that will motivate me to be even better for the rest of my career, because you only get so few of these, and you have to capitalize on these, and they hurt probably more than the wins feel good.
Yeah, Pat's going to be fine. He's the best quarterback in the NFL. He's one of the greatest of all time. And with his talent and his work ethic, you know he's going to be back year after year after year. I mean, his career is just getting started. What is he, 7 years in? He's not even at his peak yet in terms of where he can be as a quarterback. The game will continue to slow down for him. He'll continue to gain a better understanding of defenses, and he's just going to continue to age like a fine wine. There's no question that Patrick Mahomes is going to be fine. And for the Chiefs, now the big question is, it's not Patrick Mahomes and how he's going to recuperate from this loss. The real question is going to be, as they continue to move forward with some aging pieces, some key players like Chris Jones and Travis Kelce, what about Andy Reid and his staff? Can they continue to evaluate talent, draft well, and develop players so that they can get that next iteration of guys around Patrick Mahomes so they can make another deep run? Or not necessarily a deep run, but have a run at getting, 2 in a row or 2 Super Bowls out of 3 years. They're going to need some retooling. And it took the Patriots quite some time after their early success with Brady and Belichick. They went through a long drought, and then they picked up several championships near the end. So the question is, how quickly can the Chiefs continue to retool their roster? The problem is when you win a bunch of games and you go to the Super Bowl every year, you're not drafting at the top of each round. So you've got to be very choosy in the players you bring in, and obviously coaching and development continues to be critical. So we'll keep an eye on that. But Patrick Mahomes is just getting started, and he's going to be knocking on the door for quite some time. Now, Andy Reid kept it very simple after the game, and he's like, hey, that team played better than we did.
Yeah, so Vic does a nice job with that defense. They played well. They got good players and good scheme, and they executed better than what we did. They coached better, starts with me, and they played better.
Yeah, one more thing from Coach Reid. He talked about, this being an opportunity to learn and improve and move forward, and that's the key thing in the NFL. Or in any sport, you've got to learn from your mistakes. You've got to see where you can improve and continue to move forward.
We'll learn from this. Like most games here, when you don't do very well, you learn from it as a coach, you learn from it as a player, and you move on.
I think Andy Reid, like Bill Belichick, like all of the great coaches, they can take a loss like this and use it as an incredible teaching moment. They can learn from it themselves and then be able to take that information as they review it and go back over the game plan, the film, and all of that, and tinker with different things. They can learn from it themselves, see where they can improve, and then they can take it to their players and be able to show how things went wrong, how things went sideways, and they'll continue to build from it. A lot of times losses like this are great for coaches because you can definitely get guys' attention when you get blown out on that stage. You can go back and say, hey, here's where I was wrong. Here's where we went wrong as a staff. Here are the issues I saw with the players, and here's what we're going to do moving forward to get better. Now, I wouldn't take too much from it or overreact to it. I think this is a case where you had two teams on the field yesterday, and one team was superior. We talked about it all week. The Eagles have the best roster in football, top down. Everyone agreed with that. And we saw that come through in the Super Bowl, where the Eagles had better talent. They executed extremely well, and they dominated the football game at the line of scrimmage, especially. And that's how you win championships. The best roster, coming together, playing as a team, and then going out and just dominating action. And I think that they looked at the film, they knew their opponent, and realized that, yes, they have Patrick Mahomes, they have Andy Reid. This is a dynasty, but this year's version of the Chiefs is not as good as we are. And they played like it with great confidence and explosion, and just harass Patrick Mahomes like we've never seen him harassed before. It was an impressive, feat for the Philadelphia Eagles. They dominated that football game in ways that I just didn't think were possible. But they do have the best roster, and the Eagles are going to be knocking on the door now for at least the next 2 years. They've got the players and the talent to be able to compete with anyone. So good luck trying to knock them off. It's a serious problem. Now, for Saquon Barkley, imagine this. You spend the first part of your career in New York with the Giants in basically football Siberia, and then all of a sudden you rush for 2,000 yards and you win a championship in your first year with the Eagles. That probably doesn't suck.
It took 7 years to get here. Some up and down, some injuries, but coming here and being part of this team, year one, and why not start our dynasty now?
How cool is that guy? Love Saquon Barkley, so strong and so fast. He can run between the tackles. He's great in blitz pickup. He's got the burst and the speed to go the distance from anywhere on the field. He was by far, a country mile, the best running back in football this year and one of the all-time greats. He's just got that unique size, speed, all the different skills you want at that position. I credit the Eagles for continuing to run the football yesterday, even though the Chiefs were dead set on not letting him get off. They continue to run the football. They continue to pursue the ground game so they could have some balance on offense and continue to keep the Chiefs' defense on their heels. They didn't get away from Saquon Barkley. I thought that was smart. That's the way you want to play it. That's how you want to do it. And Saquon didn't have a big game, but just him being on the field and the Eagles remaining committed to running the football, brought that element into the game where the Chiefs had to worry about it. And they had a lot of things to worry about because Hurts was incredibly mobile. He killed them with their legs. They were worried about Saquon getting off. And then Hurts was just very efficient working in the pocket yesterday. He had great time. He had great poise. And he was flawless in his delivery of the football. That was a great game by Jalen Hurts. And I thought he complemented everything they wanted to do very well on offense. And after the game, Nick Sirianni was asked about Jalen Hurts' growth as a quarterback.
How much has Jalen Hurts grown since the last Super Bowl and all the ups and downs he had to deal with last year, and especially after the 2-2 mark that everybody criticized him for not for turning the ball over? How much has he grown as a quarterback?
Yeah, he just keeps getting better. He knows how to win. He does a great job of being able to block out all the outside noise. I find it funny when it's like, Jalen is good because he's got a good team around him. Like, that's football. Like, again, you cannot be great without the greatness of others. Like, Jalen can't do it by himself. He needs AJ. He needs that offensive line. He needs Saquon.
Very nice words from Coach Sirianni on his quarterback. And Jalen Hurts took time to talk about the journey that he's gone through from Alabama to the NFL, now with the Eagles, and to finally get over on the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Keep in mind, 2 years ago, he lost to Patrick Mahomes. It was a tight football game, but now he got back and got over and got the win. And now he's a Super Bowl champion forever, and he talked about that journey.
It's been a long journey. It's been a journey of ups and downs and highs and lows, and I've always stayed true to it in the end, and having this vision of just being the best that I can be, and that evolving over time into this desire and this flame inside to win. And you don't do great things without the guys around you. The effort, the work, always leaning on that, trusting in that, and trusting the process, and staying the course, and sticking to the script.
As I said before the game, I don't think Jalen Hurts is, one of the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. That's reserved for Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and then probably Jaden Daniels. But Jalen Hurts is top 10 right now. Very good quarterback. I think the Eagles do a good job of getting the most out of him. But where he really makes up for some of his shortcomings as a pocket-type guy is he's very mobile. He can make all the throws that are necessary, but his poise and his leadership are great. It's a very noisy franchise. It's a very noisy fan base. There's a lot going on in Philadelphia, always, and someone's always chirping. So to have a quarterback that's very calm and collect, doesn't overreact, and just continues to stay focused on the task at hand, I think that means everything. So big props to Jalen Hurts. I'm a big fan, and I really respect him a great deal. He's the real deal, and he showed that through college when he was benched at Alabama. He came back for another year to be a good teammate to Tua. Went to Oklahoma, was productive, got them to the playoff, and now he's been a classic overachiever from what people thought he would be in the NFL, and he's a Super Bowl champion. But I like the way he rolls. He's the type of guy that you do want leading your franchise. Calm, very measured, doesn't get freaked out in the big moments, and brings a lot of poise to the huddle. And he brings that to the practices as well. He is a very good quarterback, good leader, and a good teammate. Now, 2 other things I want you to hear from the Chiefs. Travis Kelce, not a good day for him. He was asked after the game what Andy Reid said to the club after the game.
This one's going to hurt. Let it hurt and figure out how to get better because of it.
Yeah, how many times have I said it? Just because you have Patrick Mahomes or because you have Andy Reid, there's no guarantee you're going to get back there. Now, it would look like the Chiefs with Mahomes will probably get back there and get another 1 or 2 or maybe 3 or 4 looks at it to win more championships, but there's no guarantees. So when you get to that point and you come up short, it's going to hurt. And the finality of it all, too, because the season's over. Now you enter into an off season. And if you're an aging pro like Travis Kelce, you have to go through that whole process of coming down off the grind and high of a football season. And then you start to consider all the work that you have to put in just to get back in shape and ready to go for another season. I mean, you can imagine the mental and emotional grind you go through, especially for the players who are, longer in the tooth, who have been in the NFL for multiple seasons. It's brutal. Now, Patrick Mahomes, he talked about his turnovers, and it's uncharacteristic of him, but his turnovers in that first half helped seal their fate. And he talked about the mistakes and how, it's on him, which is what he should have said.
Obviously, the turnovers hurt, and I take all the blame for that. I mean, just those early turnovers swing the momentum of the game, and then they capitalized on them, and they scored. They scored on the one, and then they got a touchdown immediately after. So that's 14 points that I kind of gave them, and it's hard to come back from that in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the 2 turnovers, the pick six, which made it 17-0, and then the interception deep in their own territory right before the end of the half that set up the touchdown to make it 24-zip. The game was over. The pick six pretty much sealed it because you could see the way the game was going, the way the Eagles were dominating the line of scrimmage, and then Mahomes forced that ball over the middle. It gets returned for the touchdown, and at that point, you're like, man, they're done. They are done. Now, maybe it's 17-0. When they got the ball back, maybe you think, okay, they can go down and score and make it a 10-point game. They'll get the ball to start the second half. Maybe they can get back into it, but it sure didn't feel like it based on the way they were playing, and so you turn it over. One gets returned for a score, the other one deep in your own territory, which leads to a touchdown. You don't have a chance. It's the worst game Mahomes has ever played. But the Eagles, credit to them. Again, what did we learn in this game? That if you have the best roster and you're the most dominant team at the line of scrimmage, you're probably going to win the championship. It's been proven time and time again in the NFL. The best defense, the best line of scrimmage play, and the best roster is almost always going to get over, especially against a great quarterback. I saw John Elway get blasted 3 times in a Super Bowl where he was, at least 2 out of 3 the best quarterback. Killed, destroyed. Jim Kelly, 4 times got beat. He was the best quarterback on the field, but he was going up against teams that were loaded from top down on the roster, but most importantly, dominant at the line of scrimmage. And that's going to happen. And we've seen it now. You have the best line of scrimmage play. If you've got the best roster, chances are you're going to win because defense and controlling the line of scrimmage and moving guys off the ball is what it's always been about. So props to the Eagles. They are a worthy champion, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with for the next couple of years. All right, coming up next, Chris Burkhardt has got Blazers game day. Tonight is the first of 2 in Denver against the Nuggets. It's going to be Monday and Wednesday, and then after that, the Trailblazers will get a week plus off for the All-Star break. So Chris Burkhardt's going to have game day. I'll kick off with the Trailblazers pregame show at 5. Tip-off at 6. Travis Demers will have the call from Ball Arena in Denver. So I appreciate your time. Enjoy game day. Enjoy the game tonight. And I'll talk to you tomorrow with the Rip City Drive at 3 here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio.